Well, good morning, North Point Church. It is great to be here with all of you today. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Torres, and I get to help out here on this awesome team. And we're all over the place. So I want to take a quick second to welcome in our Nixa location, our campus there in Nixa. Glad you are with us. Excited for what's coming up. There in Nixa with a new building project and all of that, and our Dream Center. Oh man, we love you guys. Oh, it's great to be back with y'all. Man, today I want to continue in a series called Fine Print Faith. We started this series, Jeremy kicked it off last week, about looking at what does the Bible, when we dive in, actually say? What are the things that Jesus actually talked to us about what provides and gives us the best life possible? Because a lot of time the fine print is what we can skip over, right? It's like those agreements when you download a new program on the internet, you just fly right through it and click accept. Well, we're gonna dive in, and I thought there would be no better place to start than to deal with this problem. And I call it a problem because I feel like all of us have dealt with it, especially me. Is how come I'm a Christian, but I still sin? Now, you might not be a Christian, and that's okay. But I promise you, I'm willing to guess that all of us have wrestled within this area at some point of why am I not here yet? And I want to begin by asking a question. How many of you have ever had to fix something, open something, complete something with a tool, but you didn't have the right tool? Anybody ever have to do that? The other day, well, first off, I should tell you this. As a parent, I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. One of my philosophies is to say yes as much as possible. One, it provides them false confidence. 2, saves me a headache. Just kidding. However, the reason I say yes is this. It's not just to give my kids whatever they want. That's not it. But I allow my kids to solve their own problems. So when we're at the store and he's like, Dad, can I have this $500 Powerwall Jeep off the top rack? I'm like, yeah, go for it. How are you going to get it down? I don't know. How are you going to pay for it? Are you going to pay for it? Nope. I sure hope the Tooth Fairy's been stocking up on Bitcoin stock for you, buddy, because you're not going to get it from me. But this is kind of our philosophy as parents. And so the other night, it was just a couple of weeks ago, we were at our house, and it was past dinner time. I was about to put my 2-year-old to bed. My 4-year-old Hezzy comes in the room and he says, Dad, can I have some pineapple? Now he's already had dinner and he's had a snack, and now he wants pineapple. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. He's like, well, can you come open it for me? And I'm like, I can't right now, son. I got to put your brother to bed. He's like, okay. Well, if I open it, can I have it? I'm like, you bet. Go for it. And I go in the room and I start reading a story to my son, and my nephew who's in the living room, he comes in and he goes, Chris, you're going to want to come see this. My son had taken this pineapple, not this one, taken a pineapple and a can opener, and, well, let me just show you. Go ahead and play this video.
This? Like this? Okay, can you tell me how you do it? Tell me. Okay?
I don't know.
Ow!
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. When you first watch that video, you're probably like, dang, that kid's really cute. Where does he get it from? I promise you, I can tell you this. He gets it from me. What's funny, we didn't capture on camera is as he takes the pineapple later, after we had shut it off, he starts taking this can opener and tapping it to it. And he's looking at us whining. He's like, how long is this supposed to take? When is this going to open? And here's what's funny. So often my spiritual life with Jesus, my walk with Jesus can look a lot like this pineapple. That I keep imagining one day that I'm somehow going to unlock this spiritual life with God, that I'm no longer going to make a mistake, that I'm no longer going to mess up or let somebody down or fail. And it's like I just keep tapping at it like, God, you said I have this. How come I can't get this right? And I'm waiting and trying to open this thing, but it's just not coming open. And here's what I want you to know, that every single time I try to follow Jesus better, I inevitably end up failing somehow. And here's what I want you to know about failure. I put this in your notes. You can follow along if you want on the app. Failure, it's frustrating, especially when it comes to our walk with Jesus. Well, really anywhere, as a parent, as a spouse, anywhere. Failure is so frustrating because we try so hard, but yet we end up failing. Now, thankfully, people have been doing this ever since the beginning of time. In fact, 2,000 years ago, there was a guy named Paul, and he wrote a letter to a church in Rome. And the church in Rome was predominantly filled with Gentile people, basically people who were not converted Jewish people. They were just people who had come in from whatever religion they came from. And they would watch and see the Jewish people who were constantly trying to live out a law and get things done and knock it out right. However, the Jewish people couldn't even live up to this stuff. And Paul, who was a converted Jewish person, who is now following Jesus, he writes in this letter to them about the things that he struggled with. And I want to read it to you. It's in Romans chapter 7, 17 through 20. It says this, but I need something more. This is Paul talking. For I know the law, but I still can't keep it. And if the power of sin within me keeps sabotaging my best intentions, I obviously need help. I realize that I don't have what it takes. I can will it, but I can't do it. I decide to do what's good, but I don't really do it. I decide not to do bad, but then I do it anyway. My decisions, such as they are, don't result in actions. Something has gone wrong deep within me, and it gets the better of me every time. Anybody ever felt that way? Felt like something gets the better of you every time? Paul's dealing here with these two different tensions as he's wrestling in this scripture, or this passage, this letter that he's writing. He's dealing with two tensions here, and I want you to think about this. I want you to process these tensions that we talk about and ask yourself, which tension am I living in currently? Which tension am I feeling the strongest today? Okay, here's tension number one. Paul said this. He said, I can't do what I want to do. I can't do what I want to do. He said, I decide to do good, but then I really don't do it. Now, I don't know what it might look like for you, but I'm guessing there have been people who said things like, man, I really want to be a better husband, or I want to be a better wife. But I end up failing. I bet there's people who have said, man, I want to be a better parent. I don't want to scream. I don't want to shout. I don't want to overreact because I see what it does to my children when I do that. But I can't. I mess up. I want to make better decisions around my friends. I want to, if I'm a student, I want to get better grades. I want to behave better in school. I want to stop getting in trouble. I want to be more involved in church. I want to spend more time growing and knowing about Jesus. But inevitably, I fail. And it feels like I just can't do the thing that I want to do. That's tension number one, is I can't do what I want to do. Tension number two is this, is I end up doing what I don't want to do. So not only is he in the tension of I want to do this thing, but he's also in the tension of I end up doing this thing. I don't want to go back to those friends, but they keep calling and I keep answering. I don't want to cheat anymore, whether that's physically or even emotionally. I don't want to keep gossiping. I don't want to drink or use drugs. I don't want to waste money. I don't want to lie or cut corners anymore. I don't want to look at that thing on the internet anymore. I don't want to be inconsistent with my walk with Jesus or growing spiritually. And so here's what we'll do. We'll watch these like 10-step videos on YouTube. We'll Google like the Wikipedia, like steps to spiritual growth. And we will try only to fail. And within these two tensions, there's one common denominator. One common denominator, and if you've been in church for a while, this might shock you. It's not the law. The law is not the issue here. See, Paul even said, I strive to obey this law, which proves that the law is good. The law itself is not what's messed up. The problem is sin. Sin is when we mess up. We let a relationship down, either here on this earth with people or with God above. And what that does is it hurts us. And we do that. Sin exists inside of our body. And I'll read a passage to you in a little bit that'll explain that. But sin exists inside of us. And so Paul says, well, in my mind, I know that I want to follow Jesus. I know that I want to do what's right. Inevitably, the sin that's inside of my body drags me and pulls me, whether that's socially to mistakes or failure, whether that's physically failure, whether that's mentally or selfishly, whatever that is, it pulls me. And here's what happens when that happens. Inevitably, I feel condemned. The truth is this, is when we fail over and over and over again, we feel something. In fact, write that down in your notes. Failure, the reason it's frustrating is because it's a feeling. And we feel it, don't we? We really feel it. And here's the problem, though, is if we continue to feel it too long within the lens of those two tensions, what will happen is we'll forget that we're feeling a feeling, and we'll begin to feel like, well, we're the failure. We'll begin to feel like we're the mistake, like God doesn't love us, like other people. I can come to church and everybody else, when I look around, boy, they've got it figured out. But me, if they only knew me, if they only knew the times that I let God down and the things that I did, I'm so different from them. And that feeling, it consumes us. But here's what's awesome, is while Paul is addressing this problem, he also gives an answer to the problem. And I want to read it to you. It's in verse 25, and it says this: the answer, literally, thank God, is that Jesus Christ can and does. He acted to set things right in this life of contradictions. See, it's the contradictions where I want to serve God with all my heart and all my mind, but I'm pulled by the influence of sin to do something totally different. There is nothing in this earth that is going to stop you from ever making a mistake. You are never going to grow out of that. You're never going to be opening this pineapple with a can opener. You can't try harder. You're gonna fail. I hope that's encouraging. We're done with the message. I'm just playing. But Paul doesn't even end there. Paul doesn't even end there. See, while we look at Scripture in chapters and fragments, passages, this was a letter. This was not broken up in that way. He wrote it all the way through. So while it might be easy to end at chapter 7 for us, Paul didn't end at chapter 7. He goes on to chapter 8. And if you've been in church for a while, I want to read this verse. You probably heard this verse, but now it's good to understand what came before it. Chapter 8 begins like this. He says, therefore. Okay, he's given us a problem, the tensions. He's given us the answer in Jesus. Now he's giving us the outcome. Therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Because through Christ Jesus, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death. For what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in his likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering. And so, ready, pay attention to this, condemned sin in the flesh, in order that the righteous requirement of the law might be fully met in us who do not live according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. I'm just going to say this and point this out because I feel like somebody needs to hear it. Jesus, God, condemns sin. He does not condemn you. You are precious to God. You are valuable to God. You are his most perfect and lovable creation. He loves you so, so much. So let me ask a question then. If Jesus put us into chapter 8, how come so many of us are still wrestling with and feeling the tension of chapter 7? That's not the end of the story. I get it, Chris. That's easy for you to say. You're a pastor. You've got the, Nope. What do? How do we get from chapter 7 to chapter 8 in our lives? How do we turn that page? Paul said it's by living the Spirit life. The life guided by the Spirit. And I want to show you in the life of Jesus, as he was guided by the Spirit, the two things that Jesus had in him. It's in 1 John 1-4. It says this, it says, the Word became flesh and made his home dwelling among us. That's Jesus, embodied here on earth. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father. Ready, here it is. Full of truth and grace. A Spirit-filled life is filled with truth and grace. What's awesome is that each one is a different tool that gives me a huge benefit. See, when I focus on grace, you can write this down in your notes. When I focus on grace, I find freedom to grow. This might shock you, but I don't know a lot about gardening. I don't. I know I look like I do, but I don't. And I just found out this week that some trees, if you put too much like rock or mulch around it, it'll actually kill it because it won't allow the tree to get the nutrients and the stuff that it needs in order to grow. And here's what it feels like when we do this in our lives. This is what grace does. Grace, it gives us the space. It moves the failures aside. It doesn't mean they weren't there. It just moves them aside in order that we could receive the nutrients and who we are in Jesus and be able to move forward. Because Jesus conquered sin and death. He doesn't want you to die. He wants you to receive his grace. The second one, though, is this, is if grace gives me the freedom to grow, here's what the second one does. Truth, when I find truth, I find the freedom to know. John chapter 8, Jesus said this. He said, you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. Sometimes the very thing that's keeping us in bondage and holding us back from the best life God has for us are the things we're not willing to take a deep look at or admit that we've got. This is the benefit of truth in our life. Grace for the things that I can't do but I want to do, and truth for the things that I don't want to do but I keep doing. And here's what we need. We need both of them. We need both of them. Here's why. When we emphasize and only focus on grace, you know what that does? It creates this almost like shallow foundation to where, honestly, justice and truth, they're not even welcome. They don't even want those things, and they set that thing aside. It's like the mirrors at the gym. You know the mirrors at the gym? Those mirrors are different from the mirrors at home. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. I want to live at the gym because those mirrors make me look good. And then I get home and I'm like, I don't know you. But we need that. We need to be able to take a real look. However, on the other side, if we focus solely on truth and we never ever embrace the grace, what happens is we can develop this cold, hardened heart, this dogmatic belief that where we can't ever understand anybody, we can't ever accept in the fact that somebody might have a different view than us, and we struggle with accepting the fact that other Christians might have a different view than us. When we solely focus on the truth. And I'm not even saying that that's relevant today. I'm just saying that's what happens. But the fullness of both is what leads to a spirit-filled life. And I want to read you what it sounds like. I wrote these thoughts down in my notes of grace and truth, of what a balance is. I've failed truth, but I'm not a failure. Grace. I've made a mistake, truth, but I'm not a mistake. Grace. I've missed the mark. I might have been stuck, but that does not mean that God does not love me, that I am not his child, that I'm not his most precious creation. That just means that there's gonna come a day when God is going to come back. Listen, if Jesus intended to open this pineapple right now, you wouldn't need him to come back. You'd be perfect already. But God said that there's gonna come a day where I am going to come back and I'm gonna set all of these things right forever. So listen, here's what you and I need to do. We need to refuse to live in the condemnation of chapter 7 and begin to live in the confirmation and the confidence of chapter 8. We gotta flip the page here. We gotta get over this and move on. We gotta do what's next because you're not a failure. You're not condemned. Jesus said if you are trying to follow him, you're on the right path, and I'm not gonna kick you because of it. I'm not gonna keep you down and put my foot on you. I'm gonna bring you up, and we're gonna keep walking, and we're gonna keep going. So if you made a mistake as a parent, let me tell you something today. There's a chapter 8. If you blew it in your marriage, guess what? Confess it, move on, turn the page. There's a chapter 8. If you messed up, let me tell you what, your chapter 7, it might be gross. It might be embarrassing. It might be the nastiest thing you've ever seen. It might be full of drugs and problems and all of this stuff, times you've let people down. There's a chapter 8, and it's time for us to turn that page and get from chapter 7 to chapter 8. What is wrong with me that I can't open this pineapple? I'm using the wrong tool. I don't need a can opener. I need a pineapple opener. To unlock the life God has for you, we gotta have the right tool. So what tool are you using today? Is it grace and truth? Which one do you need more of? See, we've got to balance out the scales here. If the bridge to living this life free of condemnation, which God says we have, if the bridge to turn that page is grace and truth, which one do you need more of today? So I wrote this down in your notes and you can fill it in. It's a fill in the blank, but I just want you to reflect on it for just a second. The tool I need God to speak to me today is it grace or is it more truth? Which one are you living in? For some of you, maybe you need more truth. Maybe you have been extremely gracious to yourself. And you not only would benefit, but I'm guessing the people around you would benefit too as well. If you knew a little bit more about yourself and you paid more attention to those times when you failed, realizing that it doesn't make you a failure, but it'll help lead to the best life that God has for you. Maybe some of you, man, you've overdosed on the truth. You remind yourself of it every day. You wake up and you take 6 milligrams of it, and then you take more after breakfast, and then you just dose yourself all day. I've messed up. I'm a mistake. I'm not good. I'll never get it right. You need grace. Some of you, in fact, right now, you could say in your own head, I forgive you. Listen, if Jesus forgave you, why can't you forgive yourself? The fact that you failed doesn't mean that you're different from everybody else. In fact, it's the same thing that makes you exactly like everybody else. You know what the problem is with my wife? She's a sinner. I mean, like, she's a sinner. You know what her biggest problem is? She married a sinner. We're all in this boat together. And the possibility of what we normally do of walking in, imagining everybody else has got this figured out, that's a lie. They don't. We all need to live a spirit-filled life, and we do that through grace and truth. So, what I want to do right now is, as you reflect on that, if you don't have your notes or you're not taking notes, feel free to lean over, tell somebody. The best way to find truth in your life is ask somebody. Ask somebody that loves you and knows you. And then do this, say, hey, I'm not gonna defend it. I'm not gonna respond to it. I'm just gonna take it. You know, most people won't tell you the truth or help you walk through that because they feel you're just gonna argue and defend it the whole time. So tell them that and just say, I'll just take it. And if it's grace, walk out of here today with your head held high. You might have come beat up, but God was here to pick you up and help you walk out with a little bit more hope than what you walked in with today. So which one do you need the most? Write that down. Let your neighbor know. As we do that at all of our locations, I want to call the ushers forward for just a second. And if you don't believe in Jesus, say you've been sitting here this whole time and you're like, this don't matter to me. I'm not a Christian. That's all right. I'm willing to bet you've wrestled with some of the same tensions, that you struggle with not doing the things that you want to do, and you struggle not being able to do the things you don't want to do. We believe that Jesus can offer that life change. And our pastors and our staff and our directors would love a conversation with you to talk about that, just to hear you out. We're not trying to convince you. We're here trying to understand and be with you as you walk through this. So on that connection card, just check the box and let us know that you're interested in following Jesus. And allow us to have at least a conversation with you. I promise you it'll be worth it. On that connection card, though, you can also check the box to be baptized. You can also sign up to serve. Whatever God is speaking into you and you've been wrestling with, man, our hope is that you would just do it today. Do it today. Fill that card out. And if God has asked you to give, Awesome. Give, knowing this, that every dollar, every check, every penny that's given goes to the mission and the vision of being a safe place for this city to find and follow Jesus. That when they walk in those doors, last week we had 47 baptisms between all of our campuses. I'm gonna show you all a video of that really quick. That's a big deal. That's a big, big deal. 47 people recognizing truth, immersed in grace because of our generosity. Thank you, North Point. Listen, if you're a first-time guest, don't feel obligated to give right now. Just check the box, let us know that you're new, and what we'll do is we will make a donation to a local charity in your honor. So just by coming, you have already made an impact, and we're so glad that you're here. Hey, listen, we're gonna show you a video now as the ushers pass the buckets, but check this video out. And